Have you ever wondered why some people who seem less capable seem to get influential faster than you? They win support from people and move ahead politically, and they do it more easily than you did. And you wondered, what am I missing here? Not what they had. You didn't wonder what do they have? You wondered, what am I missing? Because your first instinct probably was not admiration. It was probably confusion and maybe a bit of frustration, maybe something that felt like, that just doesn't make sense to me. Well, today we're going to talk about why that happens. And more importantly, of course, what can you do about it? Because the thing about smart, high performing professionals is that you've built your career on something very real, your ability to figure things out, your ability to solve problems, your excellent ability to deliver. And for a long time, that's enough. But at some point, usually somewhere around the manager to director or next level leap, director to VP, something shifts. The game changes. And a lot of really capable people don't realize that the game has changed until they're already losing. The shift looks like this. You're in a meeting, you have the best argument, and you know it. You've thought it through. You have data, you have logic, and somehow you don't win the room. Someone else gets the support. Their idea gets the attention. Someone gets the credit, and someone else gets asked to lead the initiative that you wanted to. And you walk out thinking, what just happened there? Well, what happened is that you were playing chess while the room was playing something different entirely. So let's reframe this. What I want to look at today is, and sit with this, even if it makes you feel uncomfortable, is that most smart professionals underestimate how much workplace success depends on things like influence and relationships and timing and perception, not just logic, not just how competent that you are. They treat organizations like rational systems. Like, if you have the right answer, then the answer wins. But here's the truth: the organizations are not rational systems. Organizations are emotional systems. And the people who figure that out and figure it out early, well, those are the ones who are going to move faster. A client of mine, Alexis was technically brilliant and one of the sharpest strategic thinkers around. She had a great track record of delivering her ideas. She was almost always right, but she kept not winning the room. She kept, in her words, losing out on opportunities, initiatives that she would champion. Well, they just mostly wound up stalling. When she needed resources, she was not the one to get the needed resources. Cross-functional partners dragged their feet with her, and she just couldn't figure out why. So we started mapping her stakeholder meetings, and what I saw almost immediately was this. She would walk into the room with her argument fully formed. She had already decided that she was right. And her job, as she saw it, was to bring everyone else up to speed. Well, the problem with that is that her peers did not experience her as someone who had really thought things through. They experienced her as someone who'd already decided and was giving them, lucky them, a chance to agree. She wasn't inviting them into the thinking. She was presenting them with a conclusion, and that feels very different on the receiving end. I'm not saying that you don't come in ever with a case, ready to make a case. There are so many times that you want to do that. It's just you don't want to do that all the time. I mean, you can be the smartest person in the room and you can still make people feel like they don't matter. And the moment that people feel like that, well, they're going to stop supporting you. And it's not because they're petty. It's just that human beings are wired that way. So let's go a little deeper on that, because this is the part that most leadership books skip. There's a social neuroscientist named Matthew Lieberman at UCLA, and Matthew Lieberman spent years, decades really, studying how the brain processes social information. And what he found changes the way you have to think about organizational dynamics. Here's the short version. Your brain has two processing systems. One handles the analytical tasks like the logic and the planning and the problem solving. The other handles social cognition, relationships, belonging, threat detection. And what Lieberman found was that these two systems work in opposition. When one of these systems is active, the other tends to go quiet. When you're deeply focused on a task, your social awareness drops. When you're really tuned in to social dynamics, your analytical precision drops. Now, why does this matter for you? Because it means that when you walk into a meeting with a fully formed analytical argument, the people in that room are not just evaluating your logic, their brains are also scanning, do I trust this person? Do they see me? Am I safe to disagree? Is this person with me? Or are they trying to beat me? And those social signals, those can override everything else. You can have the right answer and still lose the room because the room didn't feel safe with you. So Lieberman's work is a reminder that people don't just evaluate your ideas, they evaluate you. Every time they're evaluating you. So where does that leave us? Well, it leaves us with the fact that influence travels through relationships, not just through arguments. And the professionals who move the fastest, they understand that and they build accordingly. So here's the research story that I want to walk you through, because this one really stuck with me when I first read it. Researchers were studying naval officers, and they were trying to figure out what predicted advancement into senior leadership. And most observers had a theory. The theory was the best performers, the most technically skilled, the highest rated on competence, you can get where this was going, those would be the ones who moved up the fastest. Of course, makes sense. Well, that's the merit assumption. Work hard, deliver, get promoted. So the researchers started mapping who was actually advancing. And then they worked backwards to figure out why. And what they found through everyone involved. The strongest predictor of advancement was not technical skill. It was not performance ratings. It wasn't even the quality of their decisions. It was network centrality, the quality and the breadth of trusted relationships across the organization. The officers who advanced fastest were the ones that other people knew and trusted and reached out to. They were connected. They were connected in every direction, horizontally and vertically and across silos. They were nodes in the network, not just performers in their lane. This research came out of Wayne Baker's work at the University of Michigan on organizational networks, and it reinforced something that shows up over and over again in the data, that influence travels through relationships, not just through performance, not just through being right. Again, I want to be careful here because I can already hear some of you pushing back and saying, are you saying I have to play politics to get ahead? And I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that you have to understand that organizations are social systems, and the professionals who navigate them well, they aren't manipulating anyone. They're doing something different. They're building trust before they need it. They're creating genuine relationships with the people that they need to work with. They're investing in others not as a tactic, but as a practice. And there's a big difference between manipulation and intentional relationship building. One is about using people, and the other is about earning trust. So let me walk you through what effective leaders actually do, because it's more specific than just build relationships. The first thing they do is they pre-wire. Before a big meeting, before a decision gets made, they have the real conversation privately. They don't wait for the meeting to influence. They influence before the meeting. They call the stakeholder who tends to push back. They have coffee with the peer who controls the resources that they really need. They check in with someone, with the person who has the informal power in the room. And they don't do this to manipulate them. It's not about, I got to get buy-in at all costs. They do this to genuinely find out what that person cares about and to see if there's alignment that can be found here. They surface concerns early in doing this before they become public resistance. Such a smart tactic. So that's the first thing is they pre-wire before a decision gets made, before the meeting, is they get involved with having these private conversations that help them to get a better understanding and help them to move forward more smoothly actually in the meeting. Well, the second thing is that they invest in relationships before they need anything. Most people reach out when they need something, and that turns every interaction into a transaction. But the people who really do this well, the people who build that true organizational influence, they're in contact consistently, not just when they're in need. They send a quick note. They give a mention of something that's relevant to that other person. They show genuine interest in somebody else, in somebody else's focus area, somebody else's project. It's not complicated. It's just consistent. The third thing they do is they understand what people actually care about. Most professionals present their ideas in terms of what they care about. But effective communicators and leaders, they spend the time, they invest the time thinking about the person on the other side. What's their pressure? What does success look like for them? Where is there a natural overlap between what I need and what they need? When you speak in someone else's currency, when your idea solves their problem, not just your problem, that changes the entire conversation. So let me give you a framework here. There's 5 steps here. And the first one is to assess who's in the room, who's actually in the room. And I don't mean their titles. Titles tell you where someone sits in the org chart. They don't tell you what actually drives them. So what I mean is, before you walk into any important conversation, a proposal, a pitch, some situation where you need someone's buy-in, do your homework on the human beings, not just the hierarchy. What does this person care about most right now? What are they under pressure to deliver? What keeps them up at night? What would make them look good in front of their boss? What have they been burned by before that makes them cautious about exactly what it is that you're trying to propose? Think of it like being a doctor before you prescribe anything. A good doctor doesn't walk in with the prescription already written. They ask questions, they listen, they understand the full picture before they recommend anything. The prescription is the thing that comes last, not first. And most people, most professionals, do the opposite of that. They walk in with the prescription already in hand and they spend the whole conversation trying to convince someone to take medicine that they haven't even agreed yet that they might need. So when you take the time to understand someone, their motivations, their pressures, their priorities, their fears, well, 2 things happen. First, you can frame your idea in a way that actually connects to what they care about. And second, maybe more importantly, they feel seen. And people who feel seen, oh, they become allies so much faster. It's so much easier to move them into that ally zone than people who feel managed by you. And again, we're not talking about manipulation here. This is empathy. This is empathy applied to organizational life. And it's one of the most underrated leadership skills that there is. The second thing you want to be sure you're doing is to listen before you persuade. And here's a trap that almost every professional I see, smart professionals, fall into. That you've done the work, you've thought through the idea from every angle, you've anticipated the objections, you've prepared your responses, you walk into the room ready, and then you talk, and you talk a lot because you're prepared and preparation feels like it should be used. But what I've seen happen over and over in room after room, conversation after conversation, is that the person who comes in with all the answers often gets less traction than the person who comes in with the right questions. Now, why is that? Because questions, they do something that answers can't do. Questions make the other person feel like they're part of it, like they're participating in it. They're not just an audience for you to talk at. They send a signal, questions do, that you're genuinely curious. You want to know their perspective. You're not just waiting for your turn to present. And they create a conversation instead of a monologue coming from you. It turns now into dialogue. And they are very likely to give you information, surface information that you didn't have before, and information that you never know, could make your idea better or at least helps you understand what's really going on here, what the real obstacle is, or maybe even tells you, you know what, this is not the right moment to be bringing this up. Aren't you glad you listened first? There's a principle in negotiation research that I love, and it's called the difference between positions and interests. Your position is what you say you want. Your interest is why you actually want it. And most people in organizations, including your most resistant stakeholders, they're arguing from positions, from their positions. But their real interests are sitting underneath, never getting addressed. But when you ask good questions, you get underneath the position. You get to the interest. You find out what the true interest is. And then when you connect your proposal to somebody else's interest, not just what they had said that their position was, well, gosh, the resistance that they had or that they would have had, that tends to go away. That tends to dissolve in ways that no amount of persuasion could have ever made happen. So you want to go into conversations more often with questions than pronouncements, than answers right off the bat. Real questions, ones that you're actually curious about. Like, really let them talk, let them shape the direction, let them feel heard, and you're going to learn something, and you'll earn something while you do it. Those two things together, they're worth more than any perfectly prepared pitch. It's just they feel less comfortable. They actually feel scarier because who knows what they're going to say in answer to your question? And are you going to know what to do with it? I want you to worry about that less than about that issue of talk time. Are you doing too much talking? And are you talking too early? Are you coming in with good questions and you're showing that genuine interest? That's going to give you information that you're going to need to move forward successfully and to put something together with them or put something together and bring it to them. Now, the third part is closely related because the third piece here is to involve people early. And gosh, this is so simple in principle and so consistently skipped in practice. We've talked about it already. Don't necessarily show up with a finished product. And I know why people do it. You want to look prepared. You want to feel prepared. You want to present something that's polished, and you don't want to waste someone's time with a half-baked idea, which is good. That's all very reasonable. So then what happens is you go and you work on it and you refine it and you get it to a place where you're proud of it, and then you present it. And then the person across the table says, I think this is missing something, missing XYZ. Or they say, well, have you talked to so-and-so about this? They're going to have concerns. Or worse, they just nod. And then they quietly work against it later because they never really felt like part of it. So here's the principle. People support what they help build. And this is not just a feel-good concept. This is organizational psychology. When someone contributes to the shaping of an idea, even in a small way, they develop a sense of ownership. They feel like, yay, this is mine. And it becomes partly theirs. And they don't work against something that's theirs or partly theirs. You're more likely to get that buy-in if you involve them early. Think about the difference between a contractor who builds you a house from blueprints that you never saw versus the contractor who sat down with you early and they asked you what mattered, your morning light, your need for a quiet workspace, the way your family actually lives and actually takes up space and moves through rooms. Of those two scenarios, the second one, that second house, that's going to be a much better fit. And you're going to buy into it. But more than that, you're invested in it. You love it before it's even finished. So bring people into your thinking early. Ask for input before the decision is made. You can say, I'm still working through this. I'd love your perspective before I go further. That sentence is not weakness. It's one of the most effective moves that you can make in terms of influence because the person you're asking just became a co author, and co authors don't turn into opponents. Fourth, you want to generate shared ownership. And this goes one step further than involving people early. It's about finding the places where your goals and their goals actually overlap and naming that overlap explicitly. Because the thing is, most organizational initiatives that stall or get killed, they don't fail because the idea was bad. They fail because people experience them as someone else's agenda, as a me project wearing a we costume. The antidote here is genuine alignment and the willingness to say it out loud. Now, before you bring something forward, ask yourself, okay, what is this person already trying to do? What are they trying to accomplish? What problem are they trying to solve already? What outcome would make their year? Absolutely. And then ask, does my idea help them get there in any way, on any level? And if the answer is yes, even partially, well, say so. Say it explicitly. Don't use it as a manipulation tactic. Again, that's not what we're doing here. Use it as a genuine acknowledgement that you've thought about their world. You've considered them. You're not just thinking about yourself. You're not just thinking about your world. You say something like, I know you've been focused on reducing turnaround time in Q3, and I believe this approach could actually help with that. Or you mentioned last month that cross-functional alignment has really been a challenge. This is partly designed to address that. Those sentences, these are lines that transform a conversation. They show that you're not just advancing your own agenda, you're thinking about the shared outcome. And that demonstration, that's what turns a stakeholder into a partner. And that is absolutely what you want. So make it a we project. Not by pretending. We're not talking about pretending, certainly not manipulation, as we've said, but by genuinely finding the intersection. It's there more often than not if you look for it. The fifth area is around timing. You got to navigate the timing. And this last one, this is subtle. And it's the one that separates people who are, I will say, strategically intelligent from the people who are just strategically aware. Not every conversation should happen today. I know that's hard to hear when you're excited about an idea. I sure know that from experience. When you feel the urgency, when you've done the work and you're ready to move. But timing, it's not a passive thing. Timing is a form of intelligence. And getting it wrong, even with a brilliant idea, that can set you back. Sometimes that can set you back further than if you'd waited. Think about it like sailing. You can have the best boat. You can have the most skilled crew. You can have a perfectly charted course. But if you leave port in the middle of a storm, none of that matters. The conditions have to be right. And knowing when to wait for the right wind, that's not you being timid. That's you being smart. The same is true in organizations. Sometimes the right move is to wait until the quarterly pressure, for example, is lifted and people have room to think. Maybe it's to wait until the person you need has just had a win, because people who feel good after a win, they are more generous, they are more open, they are more willing to take a risk on something new. Maybe it's to wait until you've built just a little more trust with a key stakeholder, because an idea from someone you trust lands so differently than the same idea from someone that you're still sizing up. So ask yourself, is this the right idea at the right time? Or is it just the right idea? Because right ideas at the wrong time don't just fail, they can make it harder to bring the same idea back later. So watch the conditions, read the room, not just on the day, but in the season. I mean, look big picture at this. And when the timing isn't right, have the patience to wait for when it is. And that patience, by the way, remember, that's not you being passive. This is you being sophisticated. You're navigating, you're doing organizational navigation, and that is just smart. So here's what I want you to take away with today. Smart professionals, they rise faster when they stop seeing organizational dynamics as politics to avoid and start seeing them as leadership opportunities and certainly leadership realities that they have an opportunity to navigate with skill. The work, of course, still matters. Your thinking still matters. Your results still matter. Nobody gets to skip that part. But at the level you're moving toward, the people who get there, they're not just the most talented. They're the ones who understand the human system that they're operating inside, who know how to read the room and build relationships, genuine relationships, to earn trust over time and to move ideas forward through people, not despite people. This isn't about gaming the system. This isn't about being political in the cynical sense of the word. This is you earning your place in that social system. And that's what this kind of a navigation is. It's not a compromise of your integrity. It's an expression of your leadership. So your assignment for this week is to pick one relationship in your organization that matters to your success, to your advancement, to your growth. Maybe it's a peer, maybe it's a stakeholder, maybe it's a senior leader. Someone that you've been underinvesting in, that would be a good choice. Someone you've been meaning to connect with, say, or someone you reach out only when you need something. That would be a great one to choose. And reach out this week, not with an ask, not with an agenda, just genuine connection. A question about what they're working on, and maybe make an observation to them about something that you know is relevant to them. Maybe it's saying, I'm thinking about you, something like that, that is not a transaction. Just pick one relationship, one outreach. Do it this week. That's the whole assignment. And it's smaller than it sounds. But the professionals who do this kind of work consistently over time, they're the ones who never find themselves without allies when it matters.